Welcome back to another episode of Pause and Effect, guys. I am your once in the blue moon host, Tony Lee with one E. And on today's podcast, we have a special guest who is appearing on the show for the first time. Say hi to everyone, CJ.
Well, this is different. Hi, everyone. I'm CJ of Pause and Effect. You may know me from shows such as Pause and Effect, Pause and Effect Select Button, Pause and Effect Quick Play. And we're here with another Select Button episode. Thank you for having me, Tony.
Of course, and talk about a pause effect, right? All of these different pause and effects linking between multiple multiverses.
Makes me wonder what you're trying to get at and what the topic is.
Right. And today's topic is a game I hold very close in there. I can actually say it's my first Game Boy Advance game, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And of course, we're not going to leave out A2.
Very nice, very nice. I look forward to what you've got working as the host.
Yeah, so I know we talked a little bit about this before. I've completed Tactics Advance all the way through, but only touched on A2 just a little bit. And I think it's actually the reverse for you, right?
Yeah, I am the exact opposite. I have not completed Tactics Advance. Hell, I don't even know what happened in my Game Boy Advance copy. Although I do have it for Wii U, so maybe I can revisit it one of these days. But on the flip side, I have completed A2 Grimoire of the Rift to 100%.
That's impressive. I actually want to go back and play A2. Unfortunately, I lost both that copy and the Tactic Advance copy during a move a long time ago, and to this day that kind of hurts. Even though I'm pretty sure I can go on and buy it rather cheaply compared to any of the other games. But the the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy SP even, that was such a long time ago.
Yeah, that is, man, even remembering all of the stuff from the Game Boy Advance SP or just the Game Boy Advance in general, there was so much, and very similar to the DS, it was a Wild West style wasteland of like all sorts of stuff to come out of the console. And there were a lot of well thought out things. Of course, there were some stinkers too, but yeah, it's a very big thing.
Yeah, and I remember the first time we actually got an SP, it was three siblings, including myself, sharing one Game Boy SP. So you can only imagine how long that took just to get our turns in. But the first two games that we got was Pokemon Emerald at the time, and then Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which thankfully I was the only one that fell in love with it. It was definitely my first tactic game, and I feel like that actually bled into a whole lot of the games I play now, especially when it comes to strategy too. There's just a unique experience when it comes to being able to select and manage a troop like that. And the class level itself is what stood out to me the most and what made the experience memorable. Being able to kind of be a completely different thing, master that skill, go to completely new class, master that skill, and just really do nothing but grind, which was my better part of the memory for this.
Yeah, I'm impressed just hearing all that and being like, "Oh, you shared the Game Boy Advance between your brothers and your brother and your sister, and the whole thing just you're the only one that really liked the game, and then you guys fought for the rest of the stuff." It's moments like that that make me think like that make me grateful that I didn't have to share consoles between my brother and I. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, I want to say I can only imagine what that was like, but definitely now as we're a lot older, when we're able to afford our own consoles, I in the weirdest way, I kind of miss doing that just because there's a level of excitement that's shared amongst each other, right? When you hit a certain level in the game, even though you're not all playing it at the same time, there's just that level of sibling excitement, for the lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Yeah, but in terms of like the tactic advanced story, I don't know what how long the story is for A2, but I know when I was going through it to a through just the OG, fell in love with it, and it felt like it was a lot longer than what it is now if I were to have gone back and replay it, which I did a couple times, probably because all of the extra side quests that I didn't realize were side quests kind of added on to that playtime length. Because I think being in the game, it's only a matter of like a couple of hours or something, as opposed to if you're grinding everything, it can take way much longer than that.
Yeah, very true. Um, it has been many years. I don't quite remember how long the story for A2 was. I believe if I had to like guess as to what the cap was for that sort of thing, for the number of story missions, it would be maybe like anywhere between 15 to 20.
That's actually not bad because that's still a lengthy bit of time. But I think at during that time, right? I think that was like the peak of how long a handheld game can be. I remember even with the OG PSP, and I think it was one of the Metal Gear games. I don't remember. It's like the game wasn't even that long. That was like around 5 to 6 hours. And for a handheld, I think around that time, that was plenty for us. And now it's like if something is less than 30 hours and it's a 60-hour game, it's kind of questionable.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. More in the sense of you would yeah, like in terms of Game Boy Advance, you would think that you'd get like much shorter experiences, but there were some pretty long ones too. I think the two biggest examples I can think of are the two Golden Sun games that came out on the system.
Yeah, definitely. And there are many good titles that came out throughout the days too. But with tactics, I guess specifically with A2 for you, what was the part that hooks you into the game as compared to Tactic Advance?
So Tactics Advance, I never actually got into it because I never picked up the game physically as a kid until later in life. The first time I actually played it was on story time. So when I was in high school, I was in like a very experimental high school type of deal where every student got these cheap ass laptops that Dell provided because like private school, you know?
Yep.
But I was able to download one of the Game Boy Advance emulators to that PC. And my time with it didn't last very long, but I at least got to try out Final Fantasy Tactics Advance that way. And I enjoyed it. I didn't get very far. I maybe only did a couple different I would say like story missions, but I did enjoy it to the point where I said to myself, okay, I liked this. I want to get this game. I'm not sure where I can find it. And then I forgot about it. And then a year later, I found out that they were releasing a sequel to Tactics Advance called Tactics A2 Grimoire of the Rift. And I'm like, oh, is this the same game? I'll just get this one then. Like if it's the newest one.
Yeah, and I believe I keep calling it A2 because I believe on that little sticker that's right in front of the game, that's how they summarized it, A2.
Yeah.
Um see the interesting thing for me was because I feel like because it was probably I won't call it my first official handheld game because I did have a regular GBA Advance, but it was definitely my first SP game moving more towards the era of when Pokemon Emerald came out.
Mm.
And I believe that was the first story-driven thing that I got into, and I fell in love with the characters quite tremendously. But the thing that really got me sold on the game was when I found out you can unlock essentially the core characters. And the kid in me was like, oh my God, I can expand on this. I can collect these people. I can build a unit. It that level of customization in my kid brain, it was just mind blowing.
Yeah, it's like that with Tactics A2 as well, but instead of getting the characters that are exclusive to Final Fantasy Tactics Advances, like A1's version of Ivalice, A2 takes you to the actual Ivalice from Final Fantasy 12. Is it Ivalice or Evilis? I never know exactly how to pronounce that because I've never played 12.
Yeah, I actually don't know how to pronounce it either. It's almost like the GIF conversation. I know there's a
Yeah,
correct way, but then once you say it the correct way, is it really the correct way?
yeah, I know. But what you get is like a couple. So the main four characters, so Luso, who you start with, Adele, who you meet a couple chapters in, Sid, who you get slightly later, and then Purdy, who is a Moogle as well as a Mont Blanc's brother. You get the four of them throughout the story. You get a couple more I guess original characters that you see in the game every so often. Like just you have to do like some pretty hefty sidechain quests in order to do them. But the big thing is you get to meet Von Pinello and Alcid Margrace from Final Fantasy 12 because this game takes place after the events of like a bit after 12 and a bit after Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings, which was a DS title.
Yeah, it's kind of neat how some of the storylines like interconnect like that. I think Tactics Advance was probably my first Final Fantasy game as far as I can remember. But yeah, the side quest was what I spent hours on because I think even after beating the game, you're able to continue the story along and completing these side quests actually shows you what happens to some of these main characters after beating the game. And you're able to start recruiting them to your party as well. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing because the game doesn't really end at that point. It just keeps going.
Yeah, like even as you go back to your world, you can still bum around within the world and be like, oh, hey, you can go do these things and on like do more side quests, unlock characters, and even for like some of these things, unlock more classes too. I remember that being a thing in Tactics A2.
Yeah, the unlocking of classes
Or no,
was a really
excuse
neat
me,
mechanic.
jobs because it's Final Fantasy.
Yes, jobs, you were correct. And let's actually talk about that a little bit too. I feel like the jobs are the most underrated part of the game because it's a Final Fantasy game, so everybody's used to it. But the way the tactics games do it in general,
Hmm.
it really is. You can spend hours grinding every single job and getting what you need, or you can kind of just mix and match whatever your play style is, which is what I find the most exciting. Because once I unlocked that ninja job and I was able to dual wield swords, that was the happiest moment of my time.
Yeah, I kind of did something similar too. The most amount of grinding I ever did in A2 was A2 added for the human race a samurai class, and with the samurai class, you could get like elemental strikes and a few ranged attacks, but easily it outpaced Gladiator as possibly one of the strongest classes for humans in the entire game. And
Yeah,
not
the
and not
gladiator
only that,
class.
you had like support abilities that would allow you to get a stronger counter than the standard counter ability, uh, like heightened critical hit, and those katanas are easily some of the strongest in the game. And then once I did all that for the main character, Luso, I had him class into ninja just so I could get the dual wielding thing. And oh my god, that was easily one of the craziest things I ever did.
Yeah, that dual wielding, it took forever to work up to, but once like I got that permanently, on top of being able to counter, it was just breezing through the game at that point.
Yeah,
The
crazily enough.
the other thing that I remember quite good as well was I don't know how A2's done this, but when you summon those, I'm not exactly what you call them, but I know in the first game, when you destroy the crystals, you get the summon of that specific entity in the crystal.
Oh,
And
like Famfrit, Mateus,
yeah,
like those
just like
guys.
that. The first time I saw that animation take up the full frame of the screen, that drove me like nuts, but in like the best way possible. It was just holy shit, did this just happen?
I do not remember specifically if there was a if like those guys appeared as summons specifically. Like I have the fandom page up for on the Final Fantasy fandom, and I'm looking up to see if there's like a summoner class or like any kind of summoning thing, and I am not seeing anything.
Yeah, I know in from my memory in the first tactics, there was like a special meter. I think that has to build up, and then you're able to use all of those points to get the summon. Don't quote me on that, but I know it was like not something you can do quite often once the match starts, but being
Yeah.
able to do that at least once. Oh yeah, that's what it is. It's every race was able to do one summon for that specific entity supporting that race.
Oh right, I remember that now because Famfrit, the first time I played, was about as far as I got, and I don't think I ever saw the entire thing until much later. But at the same time, like first of all, those summons are god tier. I don't know if you would or well, I don't know if I'd put them like higher or lower than the summons of Golden Sun. Maybe they're about the same,
Yeah.
but they are powerful. And I could see why, because I for the life of me, I don't remember if they brought them back or not for Tactic K2 because it's been a very long time. But but I can see why they wouldn't.
Yeah, and it's also kind of neat too, right? Because catching up to date a little bit, the fact that they've re-released that recent Tactics one that I can't remember the full title to. I know I do have it sitting somewhere in my Steam. So the fact that that genre hasn't completely died off is amazing. And I can't say completely died off because a lot of games started using that mechanics as well. I'm not sure who was the first to, but definitely there are multiple games that uses the same tactics mechanic.
Yeah, and there's even a bunch of different games that do stuff in the same style or like try to emulate it, but not really. Like the three that come to mind are there was Triangle Strategy, which released on Switch and PC last year, back in March of last year, I think. There was the Diofield Chronicle, which released on consoles, I forget specifically which, and PC like back in September, I think. And then
Mhm.
on my stream, I played a demo for one that I thought was hysterical called Bancho Tactics,
Bancho tactics.
which is just you are Japanese high school delinquents beating up other Japanese high school delinquents in tactic style.
That's actually kind of funny.
It was hilarious. Like I only got to play two levels, but I remember playing it and I'm like, okay, I will wishlist this. I want to play this when it comes out. This is hilarious.
And so that's how it all starts.
Like one question
Yeah.
that I had regarding like tactic style gameplay, and I'm really glad you brought it up, is do you think Tactics Advances gameplay holds up today? How do you think it compares to other tactics RPGs?
I still feel like it holds up incredibly well. And I only said it because that mechanic is being utilized quite a lot. And like I said, just recently they released out tactics. Was it I don't remember what the name Reborn org
Oh,
something.
Tactics Ogre Reborn.
Yeah, Static Ogre Reborn. Just having that come out again truly means that that mechanic and playstyle is still around to this very day. Granted, I don't think I've ever played the OG, like just regular tactics. I've tried getting into that after playing a little bit of A2, but I think the only way I was able to play it was to get it emulated on either on my computer or the modded PSP I had at the time.
That's fair, and there's nothing wrong with attempting to emulate it if you can't play it any other way. And I don't know anything about OG Tactics or the War of the Lions PSP remake, or even anything regarding Tactics Ogre. I would like to play those games at some point. I just don't know when that will be. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah. So to take it to get the gameplay style a little bit,
Yeah.
how did you feel or when you initially played it, was that your first tactics like game, or was there something else that you did that has similar mechanics?
Um, kind of, but not really, because that was the playing A2 for the first time, I think. That was the second time I had played a tactics game in that style, but uh coming up to that point, I played a lot of the Fire Emblem titles that had come out in the West, which were Blazing Blade and Sacred Stones on Game Boy Advance, Path of Radiance on GameCube, and for the life of me, I don't remember if Radiant Dawn was out at that point. It probably was, because
Yeah,
I just looked up A2's release date, June 24th, 2008.
right. It's crazy that it was 2008.
Yeah, when did OG Tactics Advance come out? Or no, I'm looking it up now. That was wow, September 8th, 2003.
Yep, that sounds about right.
A whole 5 years later.
It sounds about right. Eh,
Okay, Fire Emblem did come out in 2007. Radiant
yeah,
Dawn did.
man, talk about a huge time skip.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, is there anything about the tactics game that you're specifically in love with?
I guess um I guess for me it was the entire idea of positioning matters. And
Yeah.
you have and it's not just a thing of like, oh, go into this terrain in Fire Emblem and you get all of these bonuses. Like these games you can brute force it at later levels, but starting out with it, you need to like really pay attention. Otherwise, you're going to lose people fast.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that too, the most memorable experience I had, not in like the terms of, oh, this is awesome, but in the terms of holy crap, I can't believe that just happened, was the zones where your characters aren't revivable if they're dead.
God, yeah, that I encountered that the second time I played the game, and that threw me for a loop, like real bad.
Yeah, I did not expect it at all because I didn't know much about what I was doing then. And it adds in that extra level of oh shit when you were in that zone running any sort of quest. But after some extent, right, I feel like I started purposely putting myself through that zone, especially once I started unlocking the jobs I've wanted, because it was also a good way to test out how OP your unit was before you go to the next final, or not the next final, but the next main quest.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the map thing was pretty cool as well. I think for I don't remember if I'm remembering this correctly, but I feel like a part of the box art when you got that Game Boy Advance version, I think it did come with like its own foldable map of where everything took place.
Oh, did
Uh,
it?
I can't remember if that was what came with it or if it was like some sort of a special edition. It's been so long ago, but I can't say I do kind of miss being able to pick up boxes that small and having that extra stuff that comes with it instead
Yeah.
of just a game manual now. I think in order for you to get anything remotely okay, it's just to buy the special edition.
Mhm. But yeah, I'm remembering too, because with that whole map thing, A2, I will admit, does not have that. Because A2 takes place in the actual Ivalice instead of like a fictionalized version of it.
Yeah, I think you're gonna need to buy like a few games to build out the entire map.
Yep.
Yeah, so with the with that being said too, how did you feel about the map system in terms of running into enemies and moving around? Because I feel like that itself was also a very unique mechanic.
Oh, you mean just random encounters and things like that?
Yeah.
I thought that was cool, but at the same time, maybe like the dichotomy of it is super weird because in the beginning, you're like, please don't let me run into anyone. Please don't let me run into anyone. And then you pass through a tile and you get the message, Ack, we're under attack. I'm like, no, I just want to leave this battle. And it turns out you kind of can. You do have the option of running, but closer to the end of the game, when you need to grind and there aren't really a lot of like missions left, like when I got to the point where there were no more missions and I couldn't really do much of anything else, I was like, come on, please let me get this random encounter, please. And I spent 5 minutes in one area trying to proc a random encounter to happen, and it didn't. And I just gave up and like went somewhere else.
Yep, I remember running into that exact situation. Once I got what I needed and I need the XP grind, it's like, no, what are you doing? Stop running away, come back. Because on I don't know how different the maps are between A1 and A2 from memory, but I know in A1 you actually see the enemy walking through the map, so you can purposely choose to avoid them or run into them. But sometimes they disappear before you even get to them, which is the unfortunate bit.
If I recall correctly, that is not a thing in A2.
Yeah, I don't think that is in A2, just from what I remembered from how much I played it. But that was the neat thing about the first game. But then again, that first game only took place in that one visible map that you saw. There was really nothing more to that once you've unlocked everything. Kind of kind of feel like searching up in A2 now to see if I can get a copy of that because it sounds like definitely much bigger than the first one,
Oh, good luck.
right?
It is like from my knowledge, it does seem like a much bigger experience, but with the used DS market as shot as it is, hang on, I just booted up eBay. Let me double check it for you. Uh oh, that's actually not bad. I'm seeing copies for like without the box arts for like 33, 42, $35, 40, one with the box for 40 as well.
Oh, that's essentially the equivalent of buying it new back then. That's actually
Yeah.
not bad.
Oh, but these are bidding wars. Some
Ah, you
some of
gotta
these
love the
are.
biddings.
Well, the ones for like $33.42, $40. There's one for 20.99 that is the United States version. You can quote unquote buy those. Of course, some of them probably slap you with shipping costs, so you have to be like very careful with that. Although
Yep.
the 20.99 one does say free shipping. Buy it now.
Like not actually buy it now, but the button says buy it now just for clarity for the listeners.
Yeah, it's just like a big flashing button that says buy now. Oh, I wonder what kind of virus I'll get if I press this.
Right? Buy it now, flash sale.
Yeah,
Uh
here, I'll DM you this link.
Sweet.
And there you go.
Yeah. So outside of this, continuing along it, what was your favorite class?
Favorite class. So I said Parvir for humans, or in A2 they're called Hume, Hume. So
Interesting.
then so then it was that for them. Then for I'm scrolling through the list. For Bonga, it was either Master Monk or Trickster, both of which were new classes in A2. Master Monk is just punch things harder. Trickster is like do all sorts of weird illusion-esque stuff, and the weapon is throwing cards, which I thought was hilarious.
Essentially a mini gambit.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
Numu, it was Arcanist, I think. which was just darker than Dark Mage.
Yeah, I have the list pulled up here for Tactics Advanced, and I forgot how many options there were.
Yeah, for Vieira, it was Assassin, Sniper, Spellblade, and in a minor sense, Red Mage.
Red Mage, I feel like is underrated. I don't hear people talk about them a whole ton.
Red Mage is very much an underrated class, but depending on the source material, it can be pretty fun.
Yeah, I know. For me, Paladin and Ninja were the top two, but like diving down into some of the other races, Dragoon was a good one.
Dragoon was super fun. I miss it.
Yeah, and then what else? The I'm trying to remember what it's called. There was one that was able to control the animals. Was that I think it might have been a Morpher?
Oh, that was it
Beastmaster.
Beastmaster for a Numu? No, for Moogle? Oh no, that was a Numu class.
Yeah, it is a new move class.
Oh
I
yeah, I'm
think
looking at it now. Beastmaster.
yeah, and then for Vera, I think Fencer. Fencer was definitely my favorite, and the assassin one too.
Yeah,
For
Assassin was a fun one.
yeah, I don't think I've had a favorite one for Google, quite honestly.
I think my only two favorite ones were Chocobo Knight because of how busted the stats were,
Hmm.
and Flintlock, which was a better gunner class.
Yeah, there's just so many different ways you can pair things up too, which is interesting because I have gone back and played it a couple of times throughout the year, and I feel like each time I do, my build is always a little bit different. Because once you start unlocking the skills, it really just is a matter of what perfectly goes well with each other. And having a warrior be able to heal himself with white magic was fantastic.
Yeah. And also keep in mind that Tactics A2 has like two more races with four new jobs in each of them
Yeah, the combination ever expands. I'm this is kind of getting me prepped and geared up to go into Reborn.
to go into what?
Reborn, the one
Oh,
that just
Final
came
Fantasy
out. Yep.
14.
Yeah,
I've
get
I've not played that like at all. So I know very little to nothing
yeah.
other
I
other
find
than
that a
just the
lot.
races.
Yeah, I find that a lot of the games I bought recently has just been sitting inside the case, unwrapped, I must add, on top of my desk at home because I haven't had time to go to it. So it's gonna be like an early Christmas once I do because I think I legitimately have 5 games uh for various systems that have not been touched. I bought it and they've just been sitting there because I wanted to play through them eventually.
At some point, with how busy you are, I feel like you need to take another staycation just so you can play half of this stuff.
Right? I got very important work. Don't bother me. I need to be the boss.
That is true.
I am too busy saving the world right now.
Like, can I
Uh,
help you with that? I'm kidding.
right? But let me correct. We are too busy saving the world right now. We cannot afford to answer your emails. That will be a bold auto response.
Wouldn't it?
Well, I think we've reached the point where we've talked as much about tactics advanced, honestly, as much as we can, just based off of what we do recall from our early days of our
Yeah.
younger gamer selves. And I have to ask
Yeah.
because this is the first time you're on pause and effect. How was your first experience?
It was truly something.
And for the rest of the listeners, and maybe for me too, because I'm very curious, do you have any upcoming uh shows that are episodes, I should say, that we should be looking out for next?
So, um, how do I put this? I don't have a set upload schedule or recording schedule for podcasts. I really just like to play things out by ear and see what happens. like if there's among my social circles any buzz or any interest in doing a very specific thing, then then if people express a lot of interest in doing it, I'm very open to doing the recordings. Otherwise, to keep myself busy, I stream. And I did before this recording, I did a very chill, laid back, relaxed Skate 3 stream. And then Sunday, I'll be playing The Evil Within 2 again. And then I'll have my schedule for next week posted, which I'm not going to spoil anything for that yet. But all I say is like bear with me and just patience.
There you have, folks, straight from the man. I do know we do plan on talking about the RE4 remake eventually. Oh man, that's gonna be fantastic.
Oh man, I can't wait.
All right, so thank you for allowing me to do the intro, CJ. It was quite the twist for this episode, and I had fun doing that.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, hey, this was a select button episode, and this it was practically your episode. I let you host, I let you pick the thing, and yeah, this was your thing. But before we go, I do have some questions for you, if you don't mind me asking them.
Of course not.
So we talked a little bit about um like now you can consider me as like taking back over my own show.
Right.
But if you were to make a newer entry in the Final Fantasy Tactics series, either like as its own thing or even maybe a Tactics A3, how would you do it? Would you do something vaguely original? Would you do a full remake of something, or would you try to do it as something else?
Oh my God. So that's actually something I've pondered on for the longest time. And you remember that one Kingdom Hearts game, Decoded? I don't remember
Oh,
what
recoded.
Recoded, where everything was completely scrambled in terms of memories. I would love
Yes.
to have a game, a tactics game just like that, following through the OG timeline, caught up to where we are with the tactics games, and kind of have those bits and pieces just broken down into its most chaotic form possible.
That would be interesting. How do you think that would work?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure storyline wise, but I think just being a with the core mechanic in place, I think what will be nifty here in this case is definitely a good chunk of the story is going to alter itself. But I think having moments that people remember from the original games is going to be the very key thing here because it's going to be like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. This happened. And because of this specific element, the timeline is kind of affecting itself going forward. So I can't say for certain, but I do love the theory of if you mess with a timeline, it causes a ripple effect for everything going forward, and being able to see how that can chaotically spread in the story is what I would like to see happen.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, something like that, what you described very well could happen, considering do you care if I throw a minor spoiler at you?
Not at all.
All right. So the ending of Final Fantasy Tactics A2. So in the very beginning, Luso is like dragged into a book that's in his school's library because it's the beginning of summer vacation at his school and he's in detention. And he's waiting for the librarian to show up. He finds a book, he gets sucked into it, and he does the adventures. At the end of the game, he like relinquishes everything that he had and goes back to his older version of his gear. Or when I say that, I mean like just the clothes that he had on at his school. And he gets pulled back out of the book into his world, only to find that like maybe only 5 minutes have passed. And then you meet the librarian in the school who turns out to be mute from the first game.
No way. It's so good back. That is amazing.
Yeah, and he's trying, and Luso doesn't really, he tries to describe what happened, but isn't really making a whole lot of sense. And the funny thing is, Mute, who's in his either like mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, like we're not sure just based on his one cameo appearance as the school librarian. but he understands and he alludes that like with like just a very small amount of words that he had a journey of his own, like kind of similar to what Luso went through. So then he just decide instead of having Luso served attention, he just decides to dismiss him.
That man, that is amazing. I would play the game just to lead up to that moment, even if I know what's already gonna happen, because that's that's the thing I like the most about storytelling, right? It's just that small little piece. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be small that circles everything right back to the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, and that oh yeah, I'm looking up mute now. So on the Fire no, not Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy fandom page, Mute makes a cameo appearance as Mr. Randall, the librarian in Luso's school in St. Ivolus. After returning from his adventures in Ivolus, Luso encounters Mr. Randall and tells him about it. Mute replies he believes him as he has been to that place too, giving Luso the very grimoire he kept with him for years. He still has his stuffed bear, which he keeps on his desk, and that's all it says.
Man, that's awesome.
You could very, I feel like for if there were to be an A3, you very well could just merge everything. It's similar to how like the Xenoblade 3 is a literal merging of Xenoblade 1 and 2, and the whole thing is just this weird like cluster of chaos.
Yeah, do you remember the Winnie the Pooh books in Kingdom Hearts? How in the first one you would go through it, and I think it was either the second or maybe it was the third one. The whole Kingdom Hearts series is a timeline blur, but
Yes.
there was one part where pages of the books were missing and it altered everybody's memories.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if something like that could potentially happen with that book. That would be so awesome.
That would be very interesting.
Oh, here's a little kicker, right?
Yeah, what's
So
up?
this is how the game is gonna start. Somebody broken into an antique bookstore to steal a book that's a very high price, being that grimoire. And while they're stealing it, pages of it falls out and they get sucked into it, and that's how the chaotic timeline starts. And the
Mm,
initial class starting out is a thief because it will be very funny.
that's actually very similar to something that I heard about from Did You Know Gaming's channel, which was the developers at Retro Studios before they started development on Donkey Kong Country Returns. They did a prototype thing for a Zelda themed tactics game where your character who at the very end turns out to be Link's grandson like goes in and out of a book to experience like a lot of different timeline things. And as you do stuff around the town, because there's pages missing from the book, and you don't play as Link, but you play as three other characters that are supposed to be Link's allies, and you set up and you're like living through their adventures, but with like tactics style gameplay with just the three of them and maybe any other kind of I am really struggling to remember this. I'm so sorry.
No,
But
it's fine.
as you keep doing stuff in the storybook, things in town open up, and as you do stuff in town, you find more pages in order to like advance the story along and even go back to other stories and do things that you couldn't do before, culminating at the very end of it when you realize that the completed book was like the book was ripped apart in the first place because it was supposed to be like a binding for Ganon's soul so that he would never return. And by completing the book, you end up resurrecting him.
Talk about the twist.
Yes. So you end up getting sucked into the book yourself. So then you and the characters within the storybook fight off and defeat Ganon once and for all.
And you said this was a fan-made game?
No, it was
Or
something that Retro Studios was confirmed to have been doing because
I see.
they tried to do between like the development cycles for like Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3, they tried to do a different thing. And then between the dev cycles of Metroid Prime 3 and Donkey Kong Country Returns, they tried to do this. And for both different Zelda things, Nintendo said no.
Womp.
Yeah, which par for the course, I will admit.
Yep. But that
But
goes to show like just how many crazy ideas there are left just floating around.
yeah, like a lot of them we'll never really hear about.
Yeah, but you know what? Any ideas we don't hear about, somebody else will manifest it in some way, shape, or form, and it will be the next innovative thing.
Yeah. Now, one more question I have for you is would you say I think you already said that this is your Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is one of your favorites of all time, right?
Yep, top one.
So, one of the first questions that I was going to ask is like, I recognize that it's damn near impossible to say how many Final Fantasy games one has played if they've played many. So, do you have a top five?
Oh boy. Um, I can't say I necessarily have a top five because a lot of them are blurred. I played many, and many includes like stuff all the way back to high school, and I definitely don't remember most of the games I played, but definitely Final Fantasy Tactics, it's first. The OG Final Fantasy VII will always also have a place, and I guess a little bit of a Crisis Core as well. So that's at least my top three. I can't remember much of the others to give you two more. I do know the one with Tedious. Which number was that?
Oh, Titus, Final Fantasy 10.
10. I've never beaten it, so that's not going to get added to any list until I finally go through it. I did get a chance to buy it on the Switch. Unfortunately, I'm stuck at the final encounter and there's no way for me to move past it.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I bought it on PS3, didn't get very far, traded that copy in for a PS4 version, and haven't touched it. That was back in 2016.
That's yeah, that definitely is a bit ago. I know I'm excited to finally get the second part of the remake soon, TM.
Oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Ah, soon.
That should be out this year because I remember saying that Crisis Core Reunion when that came out in December, I remember saying to myself when it was first announced, I'm like, okay, it says its release date is like this winter. And I'm still mad that I missed that announcement live because I was stuck doing a jury duty for the week.
Ah, yes.
But I remember seeing that and like this winter, I'm like, okay, that could be as early as December, as late as March. And then Nintendo of all people announced that the release date was December 13th. And I'm like, oh damn, not bad actually. So then now I'm seeing stuff for Rebirth and I'm thinking, wait, so does that mean Rebirth could be out in December of 2023? Is that even possible?
I wouldn't be surprised. I know they were teasing saying they were working on it and stuff soon, but I do know that the studio announced as well that they're I'm not quite sure how to feel about this, but at the same time, I do know that second part we're going into is also going to be equally lengthy, that they were going to be splitting it into two other parts. So this part two is going to come out a lot sooner than if they worked on the entire rest of the story. So it's interesting to see it go that route. It's almost like we're waiting for like a season for a Netflix show. That's
Right?
pretty much what it feels like at this point.
Yeah, like this is the year for Final Fantasy too. Like we've got Final Fantasy 16 finally coming out in 2 months and possibly 7 Rebirth at the end of the year.
Yeah, and what was
I
that
have
one
a
that came out last year? Paradise?
Oh, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin.
Yep, that's another copy that's still unsealed sitting on my desk as well.
Ironically, it just got released on Steam this week.
Oh, that's funny. I think I got it for the PS5. Yeah.
Mm. And they said permanently discounted price when they first announced it. Oh, and I just pulled up Steam and here it is.
Oh, neat. They kept their promise.
Yeah. So, but I raise an eyebrow at all of this because it says like buy Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, permanently discounted price of $40. But if you want the deluxe edition, it's $60 and it comes with a separate piece of DLC called the deluxe upgrade, which cannot be purchased standalone.
Oh, that's kind of yeah. I'm not quite sure how to feel about that because
And
then it kind of
also
forces people to buy that $60 version, even though that might have been the OG price.
and also the season pass is standalone.
Interesting.
But whatever.
Yep. I mean, Final Fantasy, it has its many moments.
Yes. Oh yeah, I never did mention what's in my top five, did I?
Yeah. What have you played multiple Final Fantasy games to have a top five? I would imagine you would if you.
Yeah, my number one is the original Crystal Chronicles.
Oh my God, I forgot it about the Crystal Chronicles.
I have not played the remaster, but considering I only ever played it by myself regardless, that would be an interesting thing to shell out $30 for just to try.
Yeah.
Because my GameCube is on its last limbs.
Oh man, you gotta play Thousand Years Door before that GameCube goes.
I have actually, like to 100%, and I sold it like an idiot because I'm like, okay, I beat it to 100%. You have nothing left to offer me.
Yeah, kid me back then did the exact same thing. Every
It,
time I
child
finished a
me was a
game,
fool.
yep, every time I finished a game, took it to GameStop because that was the hottest thing then. Granted, I know better now than to trade in my games for only like $5. But if I could go back, I would make some significant changes in terms of that area.
If I could go back, I would become even more of a hoarder than I already am.
But yes, the next four.
Uh, Final Fantasy 8. These are in random order now. Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy Tactics A2, Grimoire of the Rift, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and the last one is tough. I guess Final Fantasy 9.
Not a bad one either. Yeah.
I remember like I did try to play OG Final Fantasy 7 back in high school, and that was my first time trying it. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I cannot like get over this. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, but having played 8 and 9 first, and by first I mean like months prior. Having played 8 and 9 first, I'm like, yeah, I think I definitely like these better. Hell, Final Fantasy 9 is the point of origination for like how you learn skills in Tactics Advance and Tactics A2.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I'm trying to think back here too, because I think Tactics was my first game, and I think following up to that was 10 with Titus, and by that I was introduced to my very first ever cutscene hell.
Oh no.
I did not know at the time a cutscene could be that long.
Yeah, cutscenes can be very long
Yeah, but I
and it
mean
can get very annoying.
the plus side of Final Fantasy though is if you even just YouTube out all of the cutscenes, you essentially get yourself a mini movie.
Yeah, which I don't know how I feel about that, but at the same time, like sure, why not?
Yeah, right. I mean, if you ever need to refreshen yourself in a long, tremendously long 30-minute cutscene, you can relive that experience at any time,
Yeah, but if I honestly, if I wanted to delve into hell again, I'd rather just replay the game.
right? And I don't I don't know. I think they did this for some of the remake games, if I'm not mistaken. Again, don't quote me on that, but I think with like the first original games, you have to go to the cutscenes at least once in order to skip it. And I think later on, like as everything got caught up in times, you can just skip it down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing we don't it's a very good thing we like specific Final Fantasies and not every episode or every number of Final Fantasy. Else you would have yourself like a very specific season that can probably get you 20 different episodes, CJ. People
Yeah.
will get tired.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, that's going to be all the time we have. Before we close out, do you have anything you want to plug or shout out before we finish up?
Uh, no plug, but shouting out that this episode has been pretty fun. It's quite nice being able to host something from this end instead of being on the other end. So thank you for that, CJ.
Yeah, not a problem. And I would like to remind everybody that this was a episode of Pause and Effect Select Button. Come on the show 3 times, and you too can make a request that will allow you to host it as Tony has. And this whole thing is still in the experimental stages, so bear with me. That's all I ask. But yeah, that's going to be the show. Thank you everyone so much for listening. Please stay tuned to the next episode. Or did you have a outro call sign that you wanted to do?
Nope. I think letting it loop back to you, that's as perfect as it can get.
All right, sounds good. Well, this has been Pause and Effect Quick Play. Wow, wow. All right, this has been Pause and Effect Select Button. I've been your host CJ. Tony, thank you for being here.
Of course, my pleasure, CJ.
Yeah, and that's all we got. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. Take care.